Okay, it's been like a month.
I know it has, huh? It's crazy. It has felt like a lot longer than that, though, I will confess.
That's okay. How have
Yeah.
you been? How's everything?
You know, um, food is good. That's no longer. It's crazy that it's no longer an issue. It's like there's no guilt and shame and anything in any of that. That part is just. I can never imagine having that back. Really good. My ongoing challenge, and I could wiggle my nose and make it go away, is just the whole body image thing. In terms of putting clothes that make you feel sexy and constantly second guessing yourself, and um, when you think about, oh God, I'd love to, if I weighed less. It's like you kind of get into that and you go, well, I can't do that, because if I get into that mindset, then you're back up the rat race, all over again. And so it's
Yeah, agreed.
I don't
So you're
I don't know where I'm
recognizing
hanging
that
on to
if
it.
you go back into wanting to lose weight, that
Yeah,
you immediately cannot eat anymore.
yeah,
Like this freedom of pleasure with food, freedom from having all that guilt and feeling
Yeah.
bad and all of that goes away as soon as you hold yourself to that desire to lose weight.
yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Well, and I have to tell you, so when was it? When we first started meeting, it was probably within the first month or so. I got on the scale for the hell of it because I'm like, I just want to have a frame of reference. So I got on it. In the morning, I got on it, and I do have this issue with the scale because it's, what you make it mean. But I was just curious. I'm like, okay, so I've been doing this thing where I eat whenever I'm hungry. And I had been having this panic attack. I would gain a lot of weight, and just had that in my head that that's what was going to happen. Pay less, and I haven't been doing anything. And so what that just tells me is that my body's working. It's healing itself. It's doing what it do, and I just have to keep getting it.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Maybe I should take you off my headset. Hang on. All right. Can you hear me better?
Yes, like way better. So tell me what you just said again. You said,
sorry.
I weighed myself in the beginning, just as a reference. You assumed you were going to be gaining all this weight because you gave yourself freedom to eat bad food, right? And that's what everybody assumes. No,
I believe.
Well, yeah, and I told you to just expect it. Do you remember when we first started? I said, you know what? Just assume you're going to gain because that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't you agree? You kind of have to accept that ahead of time.
You do, because it mentally gets you prepared, and it actually makes you relax a little bit.
Yeah. Once you accept it, then you're like, all right, now I can actually do this. Because you know what? If I gain 10 pounds, it's worth finding out what happens. What happens to these impulses to binge? Yeah. What happens? Am I really addicted to sugar? Does sugar actually make me want more? Does it create more cravings when I eat it? Like, you have to give yourself the experience of this, right? And the risk is that you're going to gain weight. The risk is that you're going to binge, right?
Right.
So you gave yourself that.
When I got.
Go ahead.
I did. I gave myself that freedom to totally do that, and I was prepared to have gained weight.
And what happened? So you just recently weighed, and what happened?
Yeah, this morning I got on the scale, and I'm actually less, and it's like you have to laugh. So let me get this straight. So I can eat whatever I want. I never had that conversation in my head of worrying about how much have I eaten or when the next meal is or any of those things. And I still, lost weight.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Before you started working with me, when you read Weight Loss Apocalypse, and you heard me say you should, I specifically say eat whatever you want within the boundaries of hunger, without needing weight loss as a reward.
Right.
How many times did I write that in that book?
You repeat it a lot, but it's so funny. You need to repeat it a lot because it just doesn't get through.
It doesn't until you actually do this. Now, you could, my question actually is, when you read it before and you heard it before, did you try it?
Yes, I did. And the funny thing is I watched a lot of your videos and I really tried to do it by myself. And I was all about this, and
did it work?
It didn't work. And
yeah.
Here's my worry for people. Like, I know your intentions of the book, your heart's in the right place, but I'm like, what is it that was missing? Because I've recommended the book to a lot of people, and worry is they're going to read it and they're not going to have the aha moment, which is, I know what you want everyone to have, because that's what I want for it. And no, until I was with you, I didn't have that complete aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Oh, well, yeah, it does, because there's no, it required that you, because I didn't instruct you to do anything different than what's in that book. The difference is, once you invested, once you said, I'm here now, once you have me there, now you are going to do it.
Yeah.
You didn't really actually do it before.
No, that's very true.
But you know that now, because before you were still hoping to lose weight. So then you're micromanaging the food within the hunger scale, which increases your impulses to eat the food within the hunger scale. So you're having a hard time even managing the hunger scale.
So that would be what's shifted, is my relationship to food and my relationship to, there's just so much that changes, like night and day. You know, now it's.
Yeah, what happened is we took away the whole goal of weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
That has to be removed from the equation. If it's not, you're not going to be able to do it. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you have to lose weight, there's too much pressure on that hunger scale to be a deprivation or to be a form of starvation. You have to put the body in a losing position, right?
And also there's this whole moralizing food. I don't know what the hell that was all about.
Well, hello, you're desperate to lose weight, and then you hear it.
Mm-hmm.
How many times did you hear, I see it all the time. It's part of the diet culture.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see it as a diet culture now?
I do. So when people say, oh, well, myself too, I mean, God, I'm so sad, because I would say, oh, God, you cannot eat McDonald's. That's ridiculous. You're a loser. You know, but now I totally get that. You can't moralize the food. It's ridiculous to do that. And now I totally get that it's propaganda is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see it before, but before I really did, that cheesecake was different than, an apple. And now I get that they're the same thing.
Yeah, it just depends on where the body needs the pleasure. Does it need more fat? Well, then it's probably gonna gravitate to the cheesecake.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you tell too that if you release yourself from the moral and you actually accept what the mouth and the mind are saying that would sound good, that you end up eating far, far less?
Oh, that's the crazy thing, is it takes so little for an adult, I think, to be full. It's weird. And some days you eat hardly nothing, and other days you eat more. And so if you're sitting there, if you're one of those poor people that sits there and count calories, it must drive you nuts, because your body fluctuates so much. And I think until you give it, you don't realize.
Totally. And you're saying that from experience.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because there's some days, seriously, that I'm like, okay, so I ate a light lunch, if anything, and I'm not hungry and it's okay.
Yeah, well, and and you've done the calorie counting before, where it's, why is it harder one day and easier the next? And why is it that you're gaining? You're eating a small amount. How is it that you gain off of eating such a small amount? Right? It's like, it's insanity to think that we can control our metabolism with something as finite as counting calories.
That makes no sense.
Or even eliminating types of food. Because here's the one thing to understand. Hormonally, the body is just looking for an equal opposite hormonal response. So if you're hungry, it just needs whatever it needs to get rid of the hunger. So whether it's apple, cheese stick, salmon, McDonald's, if it removes the hunger, it's got those hormones. Right? Just based on that. Hormonally, you're balanced. Now we're got to go into the pleasure component, which is a totally different thing, right? So you go to a food, you're hungry, legitimately hungry, and you are eating food, and you eat until hunger is gone. That's that fat organ metabolism, right? That's the leptin metabolism. But there's another part of this that's so important, which is pleasure. So when it comes to removing hormonally that hunger rhythm, you could choose anything. There's no discrimination. Anything can work.
Yeah.
Right? Some are more powerful than others. So if you go to a sugar, that hunger is going to go away pretty quick. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, carbs takes it away very quickly.
Yep, and because it doesn't have very much density to it, your hunger will come back sooner. Because it's hormonally, it's like super powerful, but it doesn't have much stick. Whereas a fat, right, has a lot of stick.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong or better than in either of those two. It's just a matter of which one's working hormonally for that circumstance, right? So when it comes to pleasure, when you're eating the food to get rid of the hunger, what happens when you go towards a pleasurable food is what you're essentially telling the brain is that we live in abundance. That we're not getting rid of this hunger off of dandelions, right? Off of, what we're foraging. If that's always what's been foraged, your brain says, well, there's not enough. We must not have the very much abundance. There's not enough pleasure. There's not enough of this narcotic component that is the most powerful signal of abundance to the brain. So the goal in going to what's pleasurable is not only are you being guided by potentially what the body needs, right? Because the brain can adjust based on the information it's getting from the blood-brain barrier, what's in the blood system, right? So it can say, okay, in the past you've had bacon. That bacon has the vitamin D and vitamin E. It has all these vitamins that I really, really need right now, plus the sodium. So I'm going to make you crave bacon. What sounds good? Oh, something salty and fatty. Oh, bacon, right?
Yeah.
So that pleasure response, not only does the bacon remove hunger, but it's now telling the brain there's abundance. So ultimately what happens to this sensation of eating so much bacon it can't function. It's gone. You have the bacon, the thyroid gets the most, it gets this incredible surge like, yeah, we can metabolize. This is awesome. We're living in abundance. So what you should notice is that you just have more energy right now. Right? I mean, have you noticed that?
Yeah, no, absolutely you do. And I've noticed that if you, you notice what your body likes more. Because for the first time, you start to listen to your body, which is pretty exciting.
Well, not just listening to the body, but don't you agree? It's now you're actually giving it the grace to not feeling bad about what it's saying. Like
exactly. So like for some reason I was crazy the other day, and I thought, I don't know, there's something in it, something in cheese that it wants. So so you eat cheese. Versus in the past, you would, I would go, okay, cheese is very fattening. It's not one of those things you want to eat a lot of, so wouldn't do it.
Yeah, and dairy is super bad for you.
Exactly. And then you would go into the whole deprivation thing, and your mind would be, my mind would be upset, and I would feel claustrophobic almost, because you're like, oh my God, you mean I can't that? And then you get that panic sensation, and it just goes down.
It does, because you ruined it. You failed. You're going to be fat anyways.
Exactly.
Because isn't that what usually tips off the binge? You failed.
Oh,
you're going to be fat anyways. No hope. No hope of recovery.
Yeah.
So is it the food that makes you binge on it, or is that sense of failure in terms of body?
Oh, it's failure.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all mental. It's crazy how it is all. Yeah. Yeah. It has nothing to do with the food, which is I never thought I would say. I thought it was all the food.
I know, but that's what you're told.
Yeah.
You have some doctor who takes some isolated research and he says, oh, the mice eat. They push on the pedal when they eat that. That means it's addictive. That means that's why you're eating it. It's because you're pushing on the pedal for the sugar.
Right.
Right? But we're humans. So how is this translatable to humans? Like, how does that work? Right? We're far more complex. We have so much more intelligence. We're moral mammals. Is there any other mammal that has morals? No. So now we have moral involved with this, right? And not only that, but there's this incredible social pressure to be thin. And then there is this huge culture of anorexia that says grain-free, gluten-free, cheese-free, dairy-free, sugar-free. Right? What are you left with?
Yeah, nothing. I mean, really, nothing that tastes good.
Meat and veggies.
Yeah.
No fruit. You can't even have fruit because fructose is so bad for you. Because, the human liver doesn't work. The human, we have bodies that are inherently flawed. It can't work. So we have to force it to work, right? So, so it's like there's so much more to human behavior, right? We could say, of course, this stimulates pleasure. Of course. Mm-hmm. That's how the mouth works. The mouth has receptor sites that go to the narcotic area of the brain. So we could look at all sorts of different foods and see the brain light up. But what's more powerful for a human is when we perceive this as, when we have these perceptions of gain, that's ego. Like that's the moral part. When we see we're gaining something from it, it can make it even more brighter.
Yeah.
Right? That narcotic area is what I'm talking about. So so we could essentially say, right? If you were before thinking it was the food, we could say that because you moralize that food is bad and have removed it from yourself and told yourself you can't have it, it gives it that forbidden fruit kind of like feeling to it. Like it's this pleasure that I am denied of because I have to be thin, right? And it's bad for you. And if I moralize it, maybe that will motivate me not to eat it. It's bad, right?
Get away from it. It's evil.
It's evil. And that's supposed to help you not want to eat it. So when you do have it, when you give yourself the allowance, so here's the other part about it. So if you've moralized a food is bad, a pleasurable food is bad, without it having an intrinsic, like in reality, it doesn't hurt you. It doesn't necessarily cause damage like anaphylactic reaction. If it doesn't do any of that, now you're creating this illusion of it being bad for you out of fear that you'll be fat. So it's really more, it's bad for you because you're afraid to be fat, right? There's this game we're playing, right? And so you deny it. What does it take then to taste the food that you've been judging?
Well, you have to make yourself bad and wrong, really. And then once you've done that, you always tell or at least I used to tell myself, okay, so I'm just going to have it now. I'm not going to have it again. And so you're like, so you kind of justify, there's this whole logic behind it. You justify eating copious amounts of food. Yeah.
That's the part that the mouse doesn't have to do. You're justifying and rationalizing this. That part, what do you think that does when you taste the food after you've argued, reasoned? You're sitting there and you're like trying to convince yourself that this is okay to do because it's justified, because you're just going to, because this is a party, because we're celebrating, because I had a bad day at work. You're literally trying to convince yourself that you deserve that pleasure.
Yeah.
So when you have that bite, right? There is a sense of euphoria to it, like it's true, like I deserve this. You're giving yourself freedom from having to have shame about it. However, you're eating the food, and then all of a sudden you become aware that you think you're going to be fat from it. Now there is this level of, I have failed while you're eating it, even though you just justified and rationalized and reasoned for the pleasure of it, right? So you want the pleasure of it, but now you believe that you're going to be fat from eating it. No matter what quantity, right? I have failed. Do you see how there's this battle in the brain? Survival, pleasure.
Like if you were to have, whatever it's called, the CAT scan or whatever, I wonder if that is emotionally same as the placebo effect, different thing.
Oh, of course it is. I totally believe in the placebo effect. What you believe can change. Yes, and this is why we're so different than any other mammal, because we have these beliefs. So when it comes to food, it is extremely naive to just treat us like we're mice, especially when you're looking at someone that has binge eating issues. Yeah. It's like, you can't just think it's as simple. How simple? If it was just about the pleasure.
Yeah.
That would be like, that's like, oh my gosh, seriously? That's like thinking calories in, calories out. Like it's that simple.
Right.
It's far more complex than that, because there's these beliefs around body image. There's pressure to lose weight. There's a belief in a form of anorexia, right? Mm-hmm. Even though you're not anorexic by nature, you believe in the belief of an anorexic belief system. It's like you saying I should be thinner, Therefore, I am inadequate. Well, you're comparing yourself
Right.
to an anorexic body, right? Or a body that is no longer attainable because of hormones, because of children, because of the media and what they portray that you're supposed to be. So there's this belief system that puts so much pressure on an anorexic way of eating. In order to get that body, you have to starve. You can't have carbs, you can't have sugar, you can't have anything. You have to starve.
Yeah.
So if there's a moment, right, where there is a stress, where there is everybody else is eating for some reason in front of you, how does it feel? Depriving.
It makes it depriving. Yeah, you feel deprived.
Yeah, so then all of a sudden there's conflict between I want pleasure in my life and I have to be anorexic thin, or just thin or lose weight. It doesn't even matter. Some people don't think that they have this issue because they're so morbidly obese. They're like, how could I have this anorexia? Well, it's because you believe in the belief. You may not be matching it, but you still hold yourself to it.
Well, which is why when people give themselves permission, like when I'm on vacation, I'm going to eat whatever I want, or, you know, for this weekend, I'm going to eat whatever I want. Or that's why I noticed for myself why I would go overboard, because the rest of the time it's so bad and wrong. And so you're giving yourself permission. And
like, this is a good reason why I shouldn't have to feel bad.
Exactly. If you open the floodgates, then it's horrible.
I know. Even though you're like, oh, when I'm gaining weight, you're accepting this weight gain, right? So it's like this crazy battle in between the two, right? Between this, I have to be thin, but I want to have a pleasurable life. And food is a very intrinsic pleasure. It's inherently pleasurable. It is pleasing as soon as it hits your mouth, right? So it's not about approval from someone else. So, and we talked about this. There's the goal of being thin, which is about approval. And then there's this idea, then there's this relationship with food.
Yeah.
Which is intrinsically rewarding. It's like a personal reward. So you have to give up this intrinsic reward as a human being for someone else's approval. Which one is closer? Right? Which one ultimately is going to win?
Yeah. Well, and that's, because that goes back to how you were talking about intrinsically what's rewarding and extrinsically what's rewarding. And the more extrinsic something is, the tighter the control has to be. And so when you're doing it for someone else, you have to maintain such tight control, and there's no grace at all.
No, and they rarely give you the actual reward.
Right.
So there's really
the reward is not what you thought it was going to. I mean, it's not enough.
So you're like, I just gave up pleasure with food, like a real human need.
Yeah.
And it didn't do anything because the illusion is in your head. It's not necessarily a reality, right? Like, my parents will approve of me if I'm thin. Well, they approve of you. In reality, they approve of you.
Regardless,
Totally. Even if they're in denial about it, they're not going anywhere. They're not gonna avoid you at Christmas time, right? If you're fat, they're not gonna say we didn't buy you a present because you're fat.
Yeah,
they don't care.
But you know what's funny about what you just said? I just realized this. So the only time you extrinsically get a reward is like when Matthew McConaughey had to lose like 70 pounds for the Dallas Buyers Club or whatever.
Yes.
Like he knew he was going to be paid X millions of dollars for that to lose that weight.
Yes, it was worth it to him.
What's that?
Yeah, that's an extrinsic motive.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's like, you know you're going to get it. It's like there's a finish line, and he had control over that. So sure, if I knew I was going to get $5 million at the end of 6 months, if I lost whatever, but that doesn't. But that's because it's in writing versus someone's approval. You can't guarantee what that's going to look like. You can't guarantee, is it going to fulfill that hole you have that you needed filled, and it's not. I mean, I would venture to say it's never filled because it's not about that.
No, well, and your need for approval doesn't go away when someone approves of you, because the approval part of this isn't in their chemistry, right? It's not like if I say, I approve of you, that you're going to have that hole filled up.
True.
Because it's a spiritual problem within you that my spirit can't fill, even if I say I approve of you. Right? I'm telling you it. I feel it in my spirit that I approve of you. But that doesn't, my spirit isn't your spirit, so it cannot transfer. It's impossible to transfer. So no matter how much love you have in your life, you're not going to see it because you have this hole that you are not fulfilling. So for you to have that fulfilled, you have to approve of yourself. The problem is when we say, when I am thin, it's like saying, okay, it might not be someone else's approval. So a lot of people feel this way. They're like, Robin, I don't care about anybody's feelings anymore. It's me that I care about. Well, that's where my insanity began. Because it was me that I was actually trying to feel approved for. It was this body that I had to control, right? So now my insanity is getting bigger because the entire method of control with the body is to fulfill this huge void of approvability. Can the body, it is a physical, that's a physical solution to a spiritual hole. Is it possible?
You just said something really brilliant. And not that you don't always say brilliant things, but when I came to you to start off with, I was very concerned about what my husband thought, what everyone else thought, like when I dealt with clients, when I went anywhere in public, like that really, and so I thought to myself, God, I've made so much progress because that doesn't matter to me anymore. And now I'm all about like how I feel about my body. Now I don't care about anyone else. And I thought, oh God, this is going to be so much easier, but I'm finding it is a lot harder because I'm so much harder on myself.
Yeah.
It was actually easier to worry about everyone else than worry about how I feel about my body.
Yeah, they're giving you more grace than you give yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Than I give myself.
Yeah. So this is the end of it. You're there. This is it. It's a matter of going, oh, okay. So what we've got to be able to do is completely separate the body that you're in from the spirit that you are.
Right.
Like you have to look at this body as if it is not yours. Look in the mirror. Is this body approvable? Don't you think that's important?
I do. Well, and it's funny. Well, one of the things you talked about is, so if someone's spirit was in another body, do you recognize them? You know, like if you were in a huge body, would your husband recognize your spirit, regardless of what body you're in? And you've talked about that was like the thing that worked for you. Is what condition your body looked like, your spirit, and maybe some of the challenges just not knowing our spirits, not feeling comfortable that our spirit is beautiful and wonderful, and someone would recognize us no matter what body we're in.
Mm-hmm. Can you change that spirit?
No. I mean,
No, I want you to go back to your original answer. Just think about it. Can you change that spirit?
I don't think you can change it. I think you can enhance it.
Express
its brightness.
You can express it. Or you can ignore it. You can say, this isn't right. I'm not going to look at it.
Yeah.
Right?
You're so smart. You're so smart. Because think about this. So if your spirit is tiny and kind of withheld, and you're all about the physicalness of the world around you, your spirit is not being expressed because you're determining all your value on things that you can't control. Because
you feel spiritually that's not enough. Like the spirit alone isn't good enough. It's weaker. It's too weak. It needs religion.
Right.
It's not smart enough. I need to learn more.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not good enough. The spirit alone is not good enough. We have to prove it elsewhere. It needs help somewhere else. Right.
Right. Exactly.
When in reality, that's the only thing you actually have that's real and truthful. Honestly, it is the only thing that is real and truthful about you.
Which is interesting because guess what? What if our spirit isn't expressed? Like what about, we're selfish, or we're not in touch with the graceness of humans, not in touch with what we can provide to the world. We're very self-centered, or we're very, do you know what I mean? It's like, of course you're not going to want to focus on your spirit because your spirit is bankrupt kind of thing.
So you have to hoard. So you need to find things That
Exactly.
it's very selfish, right, to expect, for example, it's a very selfish thing to say that it's my husband's job to make me feel needed. He
Right.
has to make me feel needed.
No, true.
He's mine, and if he doesn't do it, then I feel bad. It's his fault. It's very martyr, very victim. You know, it's my parents' job to make me feel good it's my parents' job to make me feel approvable.
Right.
It's just you're right. It's a very selfish, even though it doesn't feel selfish, it actually feels very selfless. It's extremely selfish because it's very self-centered and needy, and you're taking other people and saying it's your job to make me feel adequate. Look at the role you have with the body. It is my body's job to make me feel valuable. So this body has to work.
Yeah. And like you're blaming your body for not providing.
Yes. What culture says is correct. What you need, which is founded on what culture and society tells you. It's not even a decision on your part. You're not the creator, right? You're just being told by society. But what that design is that you believe that it is society's job to approve of you.
Yes.
Right? So we may say, and it varies for individuals. It's like, okay, my parents love me. My dad loves me. It's not them that I'm trying to lose weight for. My husband loved me, even though I know he'd probably find me more attractive, but he loves me. He's not going anywhere. But then it's like, but society, I want to wear those clothes. I want to walk into a restaurant and be like, who's that girl? Right? Now you're trying to get approval from complete strangers.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the ideal, right? Or friends, or these group of friends, right? Like the most important people love you. Right. But the problem is you're trying to fulfill a sense of security out of survival. There is an ancient history to this in terms of needing society, security in society to feel safety.
Right. Because you want to feel part of the group.
Yes. That is actually an inherent part of humanity. We are pack animals, and there is a true sense of security that comes from the pack. However, what you've done is you've attached to this insane culture that actually, if you look at the reality of your pack, you're secure. You're totally secure. You have nothing to worry about. The problem is that we have this media that creates these ideals that we see, right? We see those pictures on Pinterest, the idolized fit body. We see the just in the diet culture on the media. Social media is the worst, right? And and not only the fit culture, but the diet culture. I'm better than because I'm all of this and I don't eat that. And right, there's this kind of worshiping of these ideals that you see on the extreme level. The brain, you may logically say, oh, that's not realistic. My body's not like that. But the more you see these images and you hear this type of lifestyle with food, the more our unconscious part of the brain says this is the normal, this is the landscape we live in because we see it all the time.
Yeah. So
it's actually very elusive how it comes into your brain and says you are not normal. Your environment it's not going to work for you. Right?
Well, and given culture, that's a really good point, because if you aren't losing weight, then your value to the community that you've made up is less.
Yeah.
And so to be here in the community, which is number one important to all of us, you have to do these things, because otherwise you're not as good as the next person and you're decreasing your value.
Exactly.
And could probably out of the community if you don't do
that's the fear is rejection, abandonment, disapproval.
Oh, I like it.
Well, that's the truth. I mean, that's what it feels like. It feels like I'm going to be shunned. This is such a first world problem.
Yeah, it is.
That I have to have a certain look to be.
It's a whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Totally. It is. When you get out of it, it's like, oh my God, this is just stupid.
Yeah, if I was worried about where the roof over my head was going to be, I would not be worried about what shoes I'm wearing.
No.
Let me tell you.
If we get to reality, it's like, oh, well, even just eating to hunger. If we had to ration food, I would not eat because I'm bored. It's all of a sudden like that doesn't make sense, but all of a sudden we have huge amounts of abundance. We have food religions that say that's bad, 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 bad. It's like all over the place. You have to be skinny to be valuable, and which means you cannot eat this food that's right in front of your face. No wonder we're acting like we're starving in abundance, right? And I talk about that in Weight Loss Apocalypse. I just don't go into any detail.
Yeah. How's the book coming along, by the way?
It's not. I have come to an awareness that I cannot force it. If I try to force it, there might be some ego attached to it. So I'm gonna allow this to happen. When it does, you won't even hear from me. I will be gone.
Because you'll be writing, which will be good because then you'll purge it out of your system.
Yeah. So right, I'm just kind of like waiting. I'm like, this must be germinating. The more I force it, the more pressure I feel, and I cannot work under that environment. So I know it's gonna happen. Yeah. The other thing is I have all this research. I have stacks and stacks and piles of research that I've read, and it's like I'm not sure where to start.
Put it together.
Yeah, it's so much easier if I have an individual in front of me because then I can take you and go, oh, this is what matters for you, right? Yeah. So this is easy. Like if I can make a book out of my videos, it'd be awesome.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But
no pressure. I'd like it soon.
I know. It is going to be. I can tell. I can feel that it's soon. I'm just like, it's the holiday season. My schedule is actually becoming really busy. Yeah, so I feel like it will manifest when it manifests. I have the information. It's not a matter of not knowing what I'm going to write.
Yeah. Your brain's working on it in the back.
That's how I feel.
It's like, I always laugh that my memory retrieval system as I get older is harder and harder because there's too much in there and it didn't know how to organize all of it. Exactly. So probably at the back of your mind, it's all organizing everything and getting everything ready for you.
I think so. I think it is. It's like I like to see it. I have this need to visualize. That's why I speak like I do. A lot of times I try to paint pictures when I'm teaching someone with my words. Mm-hmm. It's starting to visualize. So I've intellectualized it. I understand it from my own personal experience. I can see it in other people. So I'm applying a lot of this information, but it's got to become something that I can put on a grease board.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like when I wrote Weight Loss Apocalypse, I could have grease boarded the whole thing.
Oh, funny.
You know what? I could have taught a lecture on it. To where I knew.
That's why it flowed. When you were writing it, probably that's why it flowed so well.
Yeah, it's like that video of mine where I'm in the red shirt describing the leptin. It's like I can do this in my sleep. I can do it on a grease board. I can talk to anybody about it. I understand the sequence of how to teach it. That's what's germinating. It's like, all right, I have to be able to write a lecture. Because that's how our brains work. It's in a book. There's a beginning and there's an end. So I'm just going to let it show up. Long story short.
Awesome.
There is nothing on paper yet, but it is starting to work.
Good.
Anyway, so with this body image thing that's left for you, I think what we're talking about today might be where you need to go in your own thoughts. Because it's like when I say, can you accept the body you're in for the rest of your life? Can you actually look at it and say, it is no longer your job to validate me. I am going to validate myself based on my spirit.
I think that is the next step, and I think, the epiphany that I had in talking with you is just enhancing your spirit. You know what I mean, and focusing on that. And having that be more expressed, right? So that way it isn't just about the vehicle that your spirit is in. It's about your spirit leaving the contribution. So it kind of takes the pressure away from the body. The focus isn't on that anymore, which is really where it doesn't need to be. It needs to be on other things. It's just, I was under the illusion I could manage it and fix it, and you can't.
You can't. It's not a physical problem. It truly is a matter of you allowing. It doesn't start with allow. It actually starts with your own personal recognition. You have to recognize what is it about me that's been there since I was born, since I was a child? What are these feelings that I've always had Like someone saying, "Hey, you're a kind person," doesn't make it kinder. It's always kind, regardless of someone's acknowledgement. It's always been there. And if someone says you're not a nice person, that doesn't take away from that kindness. It doesn't matter what anybody says. It still exists. And it's not better than it was. It's just maybe you recognize it more now, right?
Right.
It is that recognition. So you have to have a recognition of it to allow it to be what you're using as the expression of who you are. The body then becomes a body. It just becomes this flesh. It just becomes this amazing place for you to communicate spiritually. That's all this is. And it gives you this freedom to just appreciate it from a point of view that is beyond your comprehension. I mean, honestly, think about the body you created. How many bodies did your body create? 2? 2, 3 kids?
I have 2 kids, yeah.
The body you're in created 2 other human bodies.
Pretty amazing, isn't it?
It's like, and it survived in that creation and then delivery.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really quite amazing that we can have this experience, that we can have a real physical experience. But that physical experience doesn't define the spiritual experience. And I think what you're about to begin is your spiritual experience on this planet.
It sounds like, well, yeah, because when you said that, it really resonated with me that it's whatever's lacking is lacking in my spirit, and it'll always lack that no matter what body you're in. Because I have been extremely thin before, and it was never enough. Mm-hmm. And that's not about, the body at that point.
It's not a physical problem.
It becomes, right. And it pisses you off because all of my life I've been like, well, if it was this, my life would be perfect. If only I had this, my life would be perfect. That's so not true.
No, you just needed to recognize yourself and say, my life has been perfect. I have been perfect. Nothing needed to be fixed. Now it is a form of expressing it. It's like, what I didn't have was I didn't recognize the truth of what made me valuable inherently. Like the reality of what's inherent. It's real. It's now. It's been there the whole time. I didn't recognize it. And honor. Honor is a very important word for you. It's really about honoring what you have.
Yeah.
If you actually took what you have in the spirit and say, this is honorable, this is whole and complete. It doesn't need to be changed. It doesn't need to be fixed. I don't have to follow a set of rules to make it better. It just is, it is all I've needed, and I'm going to now honor this. This is now my focus in life. What does that allow you to do? Express it.
Yeah. And it opens up all these doors because that's what your mission is now. Do you know what I mean? Like
now you're in line. Now it's in line with the truth of what you, and staying intact with that and honoring that. And you can go, oh man, if I knew this when I was a kid, I would have had a lot more self-confidence. I would have felt so much better about myself, even when someone was making fun of me. Even if someone, even in a situation where things were taken from me, I would have had this spirit to say, you know what, that's okay. They maybe needed it. You don't have to have it. Right? Yeah. You're now flipping into a state of abundance. It's this state of like, I don't really need very much to be happy. If I'm safe, if I'm secure, now we're getting to real security, like actual life and death security. If I have a home, if I have safety from elements, if my children have safety, if we have enough food, if I have my family, what else do I need? Everything else becomes a game. Everything else becomes like, if I have extra money, if I have these nice clothes, if I get to do my hair, if I get to play makeup, this is just for fun.
Yeah.
Right?
That's so true.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's like I like getting my nails done. That's a form of expression. So when I just paint my nail colors, I'm going to choose something that feels good to the spirit. I'm not going to pick a color I think my mom will like. I'm not going to pick a color that my friends will like. I'm going to pick a color that actually really resonates with my expression. Right? And so now, something as stupid as nails, it doesn't become that important. It's just an form of, so it can go away. You don't have to have nail color.
Right, right. No, that's a really good point.
Yeah, like your hair. Like, I can straighten my hair, I can, like, curl my hair, I can put it in a bun, I can put things in it, I can go get it colored if I really wanted to, but it doesn't really change anything in my life. It becomes something from abundance. It's like something that we can give away if we really needed to. I could give that away, and it wouldn't make me feel like I've lost something. So if my husband loses his job, or if I lose my job, and we need to find a smaller house, that's fine. We still have comfort. We still have safety, and that's really all this home is supposed to be about. Right? You can even get down to a tent. That's what I did. I was like, I could live in a tent. If I had to live in a tent, I could totally live in a tent. As long as I have safety from the elements, I'm okay. Yeah. I could have a lot of fun in a tent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So then what happens is there's this reduction in neediness. You don't need your parents. You don't need your husband anymore. You don't need this body image. So you're no longer self-centered. You're no longer narcissistic, right? And you can appreciate what you have and don't feel like I need more. So this consumption and consumerism that goes on, this insatiable appetite for more, better, it just is like, I don't need to have it. If I have it, that's awesome. I'll appreciate it. But I can share, I can give. I don't have to have it. You become more giving. And that was the point I was going to make when I first started talking, is that what happens when you are allowed to express your spirit is you want to give it away. It's just, you want to give it. So if you have this kindness, you're going to give kindness away now. If you have a feeling of generosity, being generous is so intrinsically valuable and like pleasurable that you want to go volunteer. You know, the clothes that you've been hoarding because you don't want to have to go buy more when you lose weight, you're like, I want to give these to someone that might need them. You know, there's a level of giving that becomes rewarding once you have this, when you really let that shine, the spirit shine. And it's not defined by a religion and politics and culture. When it's defined by what's inherent, whether you're in this culture, this time, that time, doesn't even matter. It's the same whether you're in this body, that body, if you live in New York or if you live in San Diego, it doesn't matter. It's the same spirit. You have the same, you might express it differently in a different culture.
Right. No, that's brilliant.
Well, it's true. That's really all that is. It's like, you're not hearing something that I've created. I didn't create this. It's not my brilliance. This isn't I'm smart. That's not what that is. This is the truth of you're recognizing something that's very truthful. I'm not convincing you of something. It should feel like it's recognizable. That's when you said, oh, there was something that sounded, it resonated. What you're hearing is something that you feel is truthful for you.
Yeah, and I'm ready to hear it now. I'm sure, at any point, it's the journey you make. Are you ready to hear what needs to be heard? And I haven't been for the longest time.
Well, part of it is that there's loss in it. There is a level of loss when we say you are to use your expression and to honor the spirit. What you're losing is the illusion of grandeur with the thin body. Oh, that means I won't have that.
Yeah. I know. Well, it's funny, when my brain goes certain places, I just have to shut the door, because you can't even entertain the conversation in your head anymore. It's like a rat race. You just have to go.
You have to let it go.
Exactly. Just thanks for sharing. Go away. And because otherwise you get all caught up in it, and it's easy to entertain those fantasies.
Well, but then you have the wisdom though of the fantasy. You have the wisdom to say, well, if I get acknowledgement for my body, that means I have to maintain it. That means I have to have that all the time, because if I lose it, then that means their acknowledgement goes away.
Yes.
Right? There's that's what I meant by there's a sense of loss.
Yeah. No, that's true.
That is what you could call attachment or ego. Like there's something egoic about it. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to attach myself to anything that I'm not willing to give away. Right? I should be able to lose it and not be affected by it.
Yeah.
So what you're learning right now is, okay, so what I'm giving up is the attachment. It's like, and really what it is, it has to do with the perceptions of people around you and the internal perception of I'm a better person now. Notice how
Right.
that isn't about the spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
And it's a lie. And we know it. And that's the thing. We can feel the lie. So it's like it creates vulnerability. You have to now, when you lie about something, you have to have the story that goes around it to make it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So if it is a lie, there is this attached vulnerability that you have to have proof, that you have to like be convincing that it's true. You have to convince yourself that it's true. There's all these memorizing. You have to do it. But if you actually strip that away and say, what is the truth of my feelings? Is this something I actually want? And if the answer is no, you're relieved. You're relieved then. You can tell the truth, but it requires the vulnerability of saying, you know what, I am not that.
Yeah.
You caught me. I'm not that. I'm not the religion. You caught me. You can judge me now. Throw your stones. Right? I'm not that body. Crap. Who am I now? Right? The key is getting to the spirit and saying, I will always stay true to this spirit because it's really ultimately the only thing that's truthful about me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the progress of it too. And there's a consciousness about it too. It's like we could say we've had this spirit our whole lives, but we have to learn how to live on this planet. We have to learn how to live in culture. So we have to learn how to express it and stay true to it, even though we live in a very worldly environment. It's easy to attach to the world. And that's usually when we do things that are against our own nature or our own spirit. That's what creates embarrassment and
Well, and it's hard to see your own spirit. You know, it's hard to see what those values are. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's hard to see how to nurture that sometimes.
Well, because the culture we live in is very extrinsic.
Exactly.
Like, and it's hard when you buy into the extrinsic system, we can lose ourselves in it. We can take that extrinsic system and make it our insides and define ourselves by it. And that's what you had done.
Right.
So it's like, you know what, let's just get rid of all this pretentiousness. Let's just get rid of it all. And what's left? Mm-hmm. What's left when you get your car taken and your house taken and your husband's gone and what is left? Really, if we really tell the truth to humanity, what do you really have to give?
Yeah, you just have your spirit. You just have yourself. That's all you have left.
That's really all there is in reality, right? Because you driving a Mercedes doesn't really give anything.
No.
Right?
No,
you having all that education doesn't really matter unless it's applicable.
Yeah.
Right? Unless it's something that can actually improve upon humanity. You know, there's so much to, like, you losing weight. What does that do to anybody?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When you get down to nothing.
Well,
when you get down to honest about it.
And actually, it's very negative because any of this spiritual gift that you could be giving is being taken away and pushed aside by this obsession to diet.
Yeah.
By focusing on food. I mean, honestly, it is like food is more important. What's in the food you're eating? My health is more important than my overall ability to give to humanity, right? Like, I have to tell everybody to not eat gluten. That's my goal. Think about that. It's a total distraction.
Yeah. That's not your spirit speaking.
No, it's not, is it?
No. No, you have an agenda and it's fixing something.
There's power. There is this body image. There's a health identity. You might say that being healthy makes me a valuable human. So we have to make the body healthy and that makes me a worthy human. Like, what a distraction, right? And it's so easy to to believe in that, right? Because what's the harm in being healthy? It's not harmful, is it? You see what I'm saying? It's like, it's taking something that you could say is virtuous, but it's making it an identity, and then it's distracting you because it's easily believable. This is like the wolf in sheep's clothing.
It is.
And then you're defined by it, right?
Absolutely. Well, and if you're focusing on your spirit, things like eating better and things of that sort are just honoring the body that you're using. It comes from it just comes completely, it's not like I have to, or I'm bad and wrong. It's that I'd like to do that for it.
Yeah, it's intrinsic. You just do it. It's not a big deal. And there's grace in it too, because you could say, this pleasure is just as important. So there's a balance between that pleasure and, being able to manage it. But ultimately, there's a humility too that comes with it. It says, I really don't know how to run the body, so I'm going to give it some grace to just do it on its own. I don't need to manage this.
Yeah.
If I think I can manage this, there's some serious ego involved.
Yeah. That was a hard thing to accept when we first started working together. That whole concept of that I'm not the one managing it. And it's like it's a rude awakening to think that because it is a huge illusion that all of us think we actually manage our bodies. Do like we're in charge of them. We tell them what to do and how to behave.
And we really don't have that much control.
No.
We do, but we don't. The body is always in control. It's always trying to sweep our shit under it's constantly trying to fix everything we're doing.
Yeah. Very true.
So we can help it by going with its guidance. It's like trying to swing dance with the body, who's the master, and then you're like, no, you're going to let me be the master. But you keep on failing, right? You just got to go with it. Let it spin you around. Let it twirl you around. Let it flip you back and forth. And then you can just move on and let your spirit do its work. So yeah, I think that this is where you need to go next, is to truly go, who am I now, if the body doesn't represent that? The body is a reflection of what it is, but it's not a representation of it. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, now what does that mean for everybody else? There's so much more compassion.
Yeah, there is.
When I got up from the ashes of my experience, my out of body, my whatever you want to call it, my near death, it was the most bizarre thing, because in that present moment when I had so much compassion for my spirit, and I said, I will never again live without the spirit being my compass. My spirit is my compass. The body is just a flesh. It's just allowing me to be here spiritually. And I completely dissolved and dismantled my physical identity, right, with this body that I was about to murder. All of a sudden, I went on a walk. I got up, took a shower, and I went to campus. I had a class or something. It was the most bizarre experience, because I didn't intend for this to happen. I wasn't trying, right? But in my own compassion spiritually, in my own realization that I am only truly the spirit, as I walked through campus, I saw these people who just 2 hours previous I would have completely shamed and judged. Piercings, black leather, blue hair, spikes. I'm in a university. I'm at UMass. I'm in Massachusetts, East Coast, right? And I just felt such an intense, profound level of love, because I saw them as spiritual beings. I did not see them as flesh.
Yeah.
It was such an amazing experience. I hope you get to have that experience.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, that would it would be amazing and gentle. I don't know how to explain it, but I can see what you're saying.
It brings me to tears talking about it. It was life-changing. You can't go back.
Yeah.
It's hard to go back to the old, it's just really hard to go back. So when I'm working with people, right, it's hard when people have no background and they're starting to hear me say, you are not your body. They're 400 pounds. They need to lose weight for their health. It's like, they freaking know that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What we're talking about is them not being defined by 400-pound body. I hear, oh God, this really gets me going. I can see that spirit.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm losing it, but there is something so important spiritually. I gotta turn this off. Okay. You know, it's like when you look at someone like that and you say, you know, I truly do get it. But removing gluten is going to make you feel better about this.
Yeah.
Removing sugar and gluten in food and pleasure with food is not going to work. Right?
No.
And we can sit here and say, of course people are judging you. Of course people assume you're flawed. Of course they do. But you know what? You have to fight for that spirit, even though it's being criticized and judged and ignorantly being put down. You have to fight for the spirit and let that be the most important thing in this, you know, body that is huge and hard to hide. You have to really get in touch with this so that the pressure, right, to use the body to compensate is gone. And that's the only way to relieve the disorder that created the body.
Yeah.
Anyways. So here you are.
No. Yeah.
With your body. And like I said, you have to create the separation and see it as just a body and say, you know what, this body cannot express my spirit. It's impossible. The spirit is too important. The body cannot express kindness. The spirit expresses the kindness. Right? My body cannot express this desire to illuminate creativity. My spirit has to be willing to be creative in a judgmental world.
Yeah.
So that's your lesson for this session.
Oh yeah, that'll be easy. Walk in the park.
Well, it actually is it doesn't take effort. It doesn't take effort. You already have the spirit. That's the coolest part about it, is it doesn't take any effort at all. There's no trying. There's no, maybe if I read more books, I can do it. It's just, you just have to remove all the physical attachment.
When you have to be vulnerable, which is very scary. You know,
it requires the vulnerability relative to the physical world. You have to be willing to say, here I am, and someone's going to go, that's not good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
And you have to go, but this is all I'm willing to do, and that's the truth. So, pardon me.
Yeah.
I'm moving forward.
Yeah.
And you should too, right? And they should too. They should have the freedom to do what's working for them. And you're not going to say that what's working for you is what they should do, because that's basically what you were doing before. It's like you as a spirit you need to go through what it takes to completely remove all these attachments, right? The physical attachment, the church attachment, the political attachment, the community attachment, the cult, right? The body image attachment, the intellectual attachment. There's all these things that we're holding ourselves to, which are completely pretentious and fake.
Oh.
It is hard to remove them from your identity, right? That's the identity of it. And accept that you might be judged by someone who thinks it should be your identity.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you live in that without becoming that? So it doesn't mean you don't get educated and don't decide to go to church. It just means that it doesn't define your spirit at all. Like, it has absolutely no bearing on the spirit. None.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we all need to move to Tibet.
Yeah. Well, the goal is that you can live in the world and do it.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. You know, I mean, I think in a little bubble as I'm talking with you, it all seems very doable. You know, and then you get out in the world and it's not as gracious as we would like. You know,
the world isn't, but you have to learn to be gracious. Because you're the only one that can do this.
Yeah.
You're the only one that can live in an environment that there's daggers being thrown at you, which there's not. The funny thing is not most people aren't looking at you like you think they are, right? That's very, very childish, very, right? Don't you agree? It's like saying, oh, everybody's looking at my clothes and they all think, no one gives a shit about your clothes, right?
They're worried about their own stuff.
Exactly. It's like you might have been judging people, but hello, you're more concerned about your own.
Yeah. No, very true.
So in all reality, it's like let me use myself as an example. I'm out here, I'm putting out these videos. I'm cussing in the videos. There's videos where I don't have my hair done. I have no makeup on. I already know I'm getting judged. I'm getting judged from this video right now. Someone's listening to me and they think that I've been brainwashed from the devil. You know it.
I do know it. I mean, I judged you in the beginning. Absolutely.
Of course.
When you were talking about sugar addiction and all that, and that not being true, I totally thought you were full of shit.
And of course. And you know what? That's okay, because you needed to have that belief that moment. So no matter, so I'm getting judged on a grade of where people are. And there's people who are more conscious than I am looking at me going, oh, she's not quite there yet.
Well, true, because the spectrum is pretty huge.
It is infinity. So, and I'm not going to move faster than I am capable of. So in my own personal spiritual progress, I am staying within where I'm at. And as I progress and become more aware, I'm not defined by where I was or where I'm going to be or where I'm in the present moment. This is all I can do now. This is all I should be holding myself to. And it's good enough. It's 100%. That's all right? So it doesn't matter if I'm naive to someone else. It doesn't matter if someone thinks that I'm just full of shit. This is my truth. I'm telling the truth. This is who I am. Take it or leave it. That's okay. I like me. I'm going to express it.
Yeah.
So yes, the world is cruel relative to what belief they have that they believe is bigger and stronger than their spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really cool about this is when you actually honor the spirit is you just don't care. It doesn't define you anymore. So it's not that hard.
Yeah.
So I guess this is where we're going to leave this. I want you to go out there and let's talk about it when we get back together. How did the world feel when you express your spirit? When that's what you're honoring? Can anybody else feel that spirit? Can anybody else define that spirit?
No.
Can they give to
Just
it?
me.
Can they take it away? They can't. So ultimately, if they judge you, does it do anything?
No, because my spirit's holding intact all by itself.
Yeah, and it is what it is. There's nothing we can do to move it, change it, make it better.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So if someone says your car is ugly, your house is ugly, you need to fix this, you said something wrong, it's like, okay, well, that's you.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily affect you as much. Okay, let's end this. Thanks for sharing. And anyways.